Today's podcast will be about AB 503. And before we start off, we want to say that Club Stride and all of us sport this wheel to the fullest. So if you guys want to support it, don't forget to check out Project Block 2's Instagram. So we're going to start talking about it. So we're going to give it off to Felix.
The idea of probation when it comes to juveniles, both people between the ages of 12 and 17 inclusive, and people under the age of 12. And basically what it is saying is that once a court has convicted a minor of a crime, especially a serious one, that they must take certain steps to ensure that this individual has a nicer quality of life after they, leave the whole prison system, which includes taking care of the individual with like things like shelter and that kind of stuff, and making sure that their probation period is no longer than 6 months.
And that's a quick summary of 503. So we're going to pass it around to April, who looks dying to speak. So I want to hand it off to her.
I think this bill, if we're able to push this bill, I think it'll be very beneficial, especially to the fact that it's just right now the status quo is endless probation, right? Or it's any extent over more than 6 months or something crazy like that. And for a minor, because we're talking about kids from between 12 and 17, I feel like any longer than that is just pushing the limits, right? I don't know.
And also, not to mention, during these times from being 12 and 17, that's basically from pre-teen to being a teenager. That is a time where they're supposed to learn how basically to get their life together. Because that's what I had to learn when I was a teenager, still learning how to do it. But it's crucial for them to learn it, because if they're thrown into the real world without any skills or just knowing how to do their probation because they were just put in probation and not given a second chance into the real world to give them the opportunities and resources they need for their future life.
I just wanted to say, after looking at one of the documents, I don't know if y'all remember the chart for different probation periods between races and stuff. Keep in mind, the average probation period for just a person of color was about 2 years. In 2 years, you could go from having your voice as high to the sky to having your voice as low to the ground. That's how long some of these people have to stay in probation. And I know the degree of probation can vary from person to person, but it's always this idea of just restriction in general. Sometimes it could be as simple as, I think it was April or Gabby who said it, something to be simple as don't break something, don't steal something. For some people, it can be as simple as you have to stay within this area, do these things, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but when you're on probation, at a specific time, when you're a preteen or a teenager, your body's gonna go through so many changes, with your hormones, and your brain is gonna further develop. And if they are restricted to such areas, it's gonna limit their growth, and it's gonna be very hard for them when they're out of probation, because the longer you are on probation, that could lead them to be incarcerated, because they could break their restrictions, or I forgot what it was called, but yeah.
I completely agree with you, because it's almost gives off the feeling that let's say if there's always someone watching you by them, you're almost gonna feel oh my god, it's so if you're especially as a teenager, you get irritated, oh my god, this guy's always be following me around and all that, always telling me to not do this, not do that. It just makes you want to just give it up and just just break out of that, So that's why I agree with this book.
Sorry, George, but that does remind me, not even just with teenagers, but literally anyone on an extended probation does have that period of I'm sick of just them watching over me I'm a child and they're the biggest man in the world. I might as well just do it it's better than like having someone over my shoulder all the time. Like I hear that a lot. So imagine you having that as a child when your brain is like what Pia said, developing and going through changing, and all this stuff could be going on in your head, you know?
Reading over the bill, I'm not gonna lie, I still am a little like confused on some things, but what I did notice and but to me what was important was that seeing how regularly a probation period can be like 2 years, right? But the programs or the things required to do for this probation period does not exactly tailor exactly to what the offense the juvenile did. So like it was meaningless during that time. But with this bill, this 503 bill, it'll focus more on how to rehabilitate the minor, of course, specifically what crime they committed, whether it was probably robbery or if they had a sexual offense that they would be put through. I read it was like a sex offender program, so they can better their mental health and stuff. So I think that's an important aspect of this bill, so that they don't just like do community pick up trash when it doesn't, like, their crime doesn't exactly correlate to what that is. So they end up not getting better, and then they have a higher chance of reoffending, and for what? So at the cap of 6 months, what should be focused on is like how they're going to better help this kid, rather than just having this extended period of time, but there's nothing being done during this time. So yeah.
So to like Gabby's point about because I believe on the bill it talks about how the conditions are tailored specifically to the crime. It's tailored specifically and it's reasonable. My question is, who is it that is determining reasonable? Because like it doesn't, at least from what I read, it doesn't sound like right now that there's a threshold for what we consider reasonable. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if we don't have one objective way to measure this, then anyone can just claim, no, this is reasonable because da-da-da-da. So what I'm wondering is, like, to make this bill better, or at least more specific and helpful, we need to find some type of way to measure reasonability, along with, like, taking into account everything else that, like, Gabby and Felix were talking about. So I don't know. This is something to think about, is we need ways that you can measure what is reasonable, because we all know judges, everyone has implicit biases. So like we have to have a way to get over that.
Yeah, and to answer your question, they're called wards who assign the probation. So that's what they're called. And like I totally agree with you, and I agree with Felix and everyone else who spoke, because it's like very important for like a teenager to know what's going to happen in their life. And it's also, well, like, to be honest, what does it really teach somebody to pick up trash? Because I know MIT used to do this when people used to get detention.
Yeah, but it does clean up MIT. Like, it does clean up.
Yeah, it does clean up. Like, that's a good thing. It cleans up, like, our city, our environment and stuff. Like, what does it really teach somebody?
It's like what Gabby was saying. It's like all the probations don't really line up with the crimes. So like let's take into consideration like the MIT picking up thing, because that actually can be a very good example for this. Let's say you got in trouble for hitting someone during lunch or something, right? So you get lunch detention. If you're picking up trash instead of talking to someone about like why you did that, the things that led you to doing that, like what situations you can use to prevent that from happening again, what are you going to do? You're going to punch someone again if the conditions are right.
Do you think? Oh, sorry. Again.
and then you're going to have to repeat that cycle. And like with other people who reoffend in the actual prison system, you're going to get harsher and harsher punishments.
Felix, do you think it would be beneficial to do both, maybe? Like, because I think, I don't know, I don't know if that's corporal punishment, if that's the right word, but like having it, you have that, but also a form of, I guess, punishment, or like not necessarily rehabilitation, but as like a consequence. Because it does, I guess I'm talking specifically about trash picking up, or like things kind of
community service, things like that.
Mundane type community service, yeah. Like, I feel like those together would be really good too.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There always has to be something related to, help, which I think they were talking about in the bill. There has to be something related to help. There has to be something related to like a probation punishment. That's why probation is not completely like not there. That's why probation is completely not there, because there still needs to be some form of punishment for a bad action, but you can't use that punishment to be the way that someone fixes themselves. So let's just wrap it up with our final thoughts. What are our final thoughts? Like, what are our general takeaways? Like, for me, it's like, this bill is very, very good. As someone who knows someone who works in the juvenile justice system, I very, very much like this bill, and I very, very much support it. What about you guys?
I love the bill, the idea of it. But like I said, I hope that when there's a comb through, that we can figure out a way to determine objectivity.
I very support this bill. Oh, my bad, were you talking?
No, go ahead. I'll go after.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right, so I also very support this bill, and because not only like limits a number, like how long the probation is, like capping it to 6 months. It also decreases racial bias, of course, because like Black and Latinos have it like more than whites do. And also like the idea of providing the rehabilitation for teens, so they can have a way to talk about problems and why they chose to do this and all that. Yeah.
All right. So for me, I really like the benefits that come from this bill. I just hope that it can be used efficiently and just not like it's whatever, but it'll again tailor more to the juveniles' needs and their rehabilitation. And also what George said, that it could help prevent the racial bias in probation, durations where POC are sentenced, or they're on probation more than white kids. So yeah, I just hope that again, this bill would be used wisely.
Yeah, I agree with Gabby and George. I was gonna say like the same thing, because I agree with this bill, and because it is gonna benefit more of like the children of color who are on probation, specifically like Black and Latinx children. And yeah, I think it'll help with them developing like and trying to find out who they are, and like with life experiences, this is gonna like add on to their problems, but it could also like help them. But yeah, I agree with what Gabby said with using this more effectively.
And with that all said, I also agree with everyone who said yes. And if you want to learn more about the bill, don't forget to check out Project Batu on Instagram, Club Stride on Instagram and Facebook. But if you want to learn how to support this bill like we're supporting it, don't forget to check out Project Batu. And if you enjoy our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share our comments. And we hope to see you. We want to hear you. We want to hear your opinions. Do you support it or not? We want to know why. Don't forget to comment that down below. This has been a good time. Thank you guys for watching. Bye, guys.
Bye.